Hello and welcome to Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer show. We are live on YouTube. We've got an NWSL recap for you all. Lots of upsets, lots of goals, lots of things to talk about. So make sure you subscribe to us, like this video, and drop us your thoughts on all things week 14 in the NWSL. You know, we want to hear from you, so let's go. Hey everyone, and welcome into Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Carlin, analyst and broadcaster for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we are chatting all things Week 14 in the NWSL. We've got to recap some matches for you all. Before we get through the final score lines and go over some of our predictions, a reminder to subscribe to us on YouTube. Also, as a podcast, follow, like, and download so that you never miss out on a single episode. The World Cup is also just weeks away, so you got to make sure that you're subscribed, that you're following, that you're downloading Attacking Third for all of your 2023 World Cup content. We're back at it with a recap. Lisa, how you doing tonight?
I am good. Different energy this week in the NWSL. Of course, we're going to talk about it and break it all down. But I'm good. I've been stuck in like thunderstorm weather. The whole country, I feel like, is just stuck in thunderstorm and thunderstorm. We just got a tornado warning 20 minutes ago for Philadelphia, which is like they don't really happen here. So like when you get those tornado warnings, it's usually in the summer and it's like a random one-off, but just like crazy thunderstorms happening. I guess it's like good for the flowers.
It's a good question mark. Look, I'm with you. Look, we got to start with checking in on the weather whenever we do this show. But no, us two here in Chicagoland, the drought is over. I guess in the summer we were like looking for rain, and now we got it. And
now we're like, okay, calm down.
Now there's like certain flooding. I keep getting updates. It's like I live in an area where there's like plenty of like viaducts and underpasses, and it's like, oh, there's lots of flooding. Don't go through this one. So yeah, everybody be careful and watch yourselves over the course of this extended holiday weekend. Congrats if you've got lots of days off. We're here working and we're happy to be with everyone. But if you're enjoying a long weekend, be safe, and I hope you're having a great time. And I hope you kicked it off with some NWSL soccer, because that's a great way to start off a weekend and celebrate a holiday.
It sure is. Shout out to Barry, who is always joining us live on YouTube. We love it. Barry, thanks for joining us. He is like the #1 North Carolina Courage fan that we have here. He goes to a lot of the games, and he's saying hello from first place, Courage County. Love to see that. Congrats, Barry.
He's not wrong. Got to put some respect on the Courage name, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it right here in this first segment of the episode. So welcome to everyone joining us in on the live. You probably got the notification that we're going live because you're subscribed. So again, make sure you subscribe and you can join in on all the fun with our show. Let's talk about teams picking up points. We've got consecutive weeks here of racking up points in NWSL. If you're one of these clubs that we're about to talk about, let's start about with the game that just finished. We do that all the time. If you're joining us for the first time on our recap show, we always like to go with the game that's probably most fresh on everyone's mind. And if you're joining us live, you probably just saw Gotham and Angel City playing out to a 0-0 scoreline. Lisa, should we remind folks on the picks in this one?
Yes, we both went with Angel City going on the road to take on Gotham. They got some points, right? They got a point in this scoreless draw, but interesting way to end the weekend for sure. Not what we both predicted at all.
You know, we were I'm bringing the preview back onto this for a little bit, but we were both kind of like, listen, There's been a little bit of a resurgence of energy for this Angel City side. They are tough to play against. Becky Tweed is going up against her old club as an interim head coach now for Angel City. What's it going to look like? And it was a little tough, honestly, if I'm being frank. Look, I know you and I text each other a lot over the weekend whenever we're keeping in games. And I told you straight up, I'll put it on blast. I was like, I need this game to wake up a little bit. At the half, I think there were 2 shots and a couple, maybe 2 attempts on target, and then another one with 0 attempts on target.
Yeah, 2 shots for Gotham, 2 shots for Angel City. Yeah. 2 shots on target for Gotham. Surprisingly, only 1 on target for Angel City. It was
by the half, I was like, all right, I'm like, well, I need to see something here. Let's end this weekend on a high note, right? All the doom and gloom around us with the rainstorms. We're like, we need some fireworks, need some energy here. That's not for lack of effort. We saw these two teams kind of getting into dangerous spaces, and it looked and it felt with the eye test as if was kind of this high octane type of match, but the shots just weren't there. We saw them spending time in each other's half, again, getting into dangerous areas. But by the half, I was like, okay, maybe there's a goal coming and it's going to come in the second half. And then it never came.
Right. I mean, there was opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was the first half. Each side had a shot off the post almost.
Yep.
Gotham did at one point, and I was like pretty impressed with them and what they could do. But you're right, it was a bit slow. It took a little bit to get going. On the broadcast, they were hyping up Midge Purse, which how can you not at this point? This is a player that was dealing with a tough injury in and out of U.S. national team camp. She doesn't get called up to the World Cup. Now is the time for her to shine. We saw her do that after the World Cup in 19. She went on a run in the league, scoring goals, and which that run is what got her back onto the national team. So there's these ups and downs of players, and I think they wanted a little bit more from a Midge Purse. Gotham also had the return of Allie Riley. She got the start in the back line for Juan Carlos Amaros. But in the end, this game, possession was split down the middle, 50-50. Total passes for each side, they were off by 2. 375 for Gotham, 373 for Angel City. It was just incredibly passive, I'm going to say, this game. Not a lot of juice happening either way. Then we got to see June Endo make her return for Angel City. There was a Claire Emsley coming on into this game, bit of rotation from Bev Yanez, but it didn't feel like either side was as energetic as they could have been. It was a little rough.
I think at certain stretches that you take a look at certain stretches of this game in particular, if you go back on the replay and watch it, I'm sure we'll see. I mean, a couple of they were referred to as cooling breaks, within this game, the humidity probably affecting players as well. Talking about 70% humidity. So there are things that come into play with that. And of course, something that we were also keeping a look at across week 14 was who was not available, for these teams, because a lot of starting caliber players across all of the clubs in NWSL are released to their international squads ahead of this World Cup that they're all building up to. So who was going to get the start over the course of these games in the weekend? And I think that we have to touch on before we start talking about the other games is, out of this half, we got to see a return. We saw the return of Mana Shim in NWSL. And I think even in the 0-0 scoreline, this is something that you're going to look at this game and want to celebrate coming out of it.
Massive. This is so big for Mana Shim. 5 years away from the professional game after she was a catalyst in the change for this league against the harassment of former coaches, in particular Paul Riley. And now she makes her return. And Juan Carlos Amaros, the head coach for Gotham, initially signing Mana Shim as an injury replacement player. And now she's a national team replacement player. But Carlos Amaros saying that it's because of her skill and what she does now on the pitch. It has nothing to do with how she was as a player 5-6 years ago. It's what she can bring to this. Fantastic to see her get back out there on the pitch, get a run out under her legs. You could hear Red Bull Arena going crazy when Shim was getting subbed into this game. Yeah, I mean, gave me chills for sure to see her back out there.
Yeah, I think it was nice to see that national team replacement players are going to be utilized during this window of games during this World Cup period.
I mean, most teams have to sign them, right? There's a minimum player that rostered that they have to roster. So they have to sign national team replacement players, but do we get to see them on the pitch? I think we will throughout this stretch. Yeah.
I don't know. I think you need to get on the phone with the Chicago Red Stars, Lisa. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. But we saw it in this game. We got to see a national team players being utilized, or replacement players getting utilized in this game. And it's I loved the reception that this player got, when she took the pitch. But a close a look at her after what was over 8,000 days. They did the math on the broadcast, and I was like, that's outrageous to sort of hear some of these numbers that have passed since her last minutes back in the league.
Yeah.
But I was a little surprised to see Junendo as well in this one for Angel City. A lot of rap. I was like, the first thing that I was like focused on, I was like, that is an intense knee compression sleeve that she has on her knee. So we'll see moving forward how she's going to be able to perform for Japan, maybe closer, maybe trying to get some minutes before she actually exits to be in camps with Japan. And I think I also really like to see how they utilized Kawasumi for Gotham as well. I think
Interesting.
they got to flex their bench a little bit, which I thought for me was kind of a bright spot in this game. I don't know if bench depth is something that we've actually pointed out Gotham for and said, like, this is the thing that is perhaps a bit of an X factor for them moving forward. I know we've talked about it with Portland. I know we've talked about it with Lorraine. We've talked about those clubs specifically as players or as rosters with a lot of role players that they can utilize during stretches like this. So I liked that. That was maybe one of the other silver linings for me that I'm taking a look at for Gotham specifically coming out of this match. So they split the points. They get to show off some of their depth, and they get to stay in the upper half of the table as well. Speaking of the NWSL standings, there is a new number one to start off the month of July, and it is North Carolina because they picked up all 3 points against Houston Dash in a narrow 1-0 win. I believe we both went North Carolina in this one, Houston. In this one,
Yes, we did. We both went with the home side for the Courage going up against Houston. This was the second matchup between these two, but the first one, remember, it was that like 52nd minute stoppage time game that the game paused for Lightning in Houston at the end of April, and it never resumed. So Houston definitely bitter about that. Obviously, they couldn't pick up points in the first game at the end of April, so they felt like there was unfinished business, some stuff left on the table. They traveled to North Carolina. Diana Ordonez, after her rookie season with the Courage, she returns looking to get back points. And North Carolina has just been impressive. They're kind of like, I mean this like as a compliment, like the little engine that could, in terms of like they're continuing to climb up the mountain and pick up points and do it in like a sneaky, quiet way that's really working for them because they're not flashy, right? It's not like we're getting flashy score lines or flashy play or certain players scoring all the goals or whatever it may be. They're putting their heads down, they're grinding, they're working, they're playing the game that Sean Nahas has set out for this team in North Carolina to play, and that is possession, and ultimately get a goal. It comes just around the hour mark from Tyler Lucy. That's her fourth game-winning goal of the year, her fourth goal of the year, and her fourth game-winning goal of the year. So that's how North Carolina gets them. Narrow score lines, but that's fourth straight shutout for them. They've now outscored their last 4 opponents 10-0. Like, the Courage is on a run right now, and they sit atop the standings for number one.
They're in incredible form. I don't know if there's a more informed team right now. And I'm saying this knowing that it's just mere points. Like there's a certain amount of points that separate team number 1 from team number 6, So, but even in that, with Portland previously being the number 1 team, for example, now they got bumped to number 2. They've got a couple losses. They've got a draw in between some of these wins that they picked up. We've got North Carolina Courage with 5 wins out of their previous 6, regular season matches. And the way they've done it through their system and the way they've done it through the belief in that system, and something that I've liked in this current run or in this current stretch of games for them is that, yes, they've got these narrow scorelines in them, but they also have these couple of games where they blew teams out of the water completely. Obviously it's different when you have Caroline involved and Caroline getting in front of goal and creating chaos and nabbing up all of these goals. But I like that a game like this, these tough in between the fine margins that it all comes down to, that you can go out and go ahead and get that win. And for the other side of things, for Houston, that win, that extra 3 points to sort of just propel them into that upper half of the standings, Lisa, they just have not been able to find it. So we're talking at winless in 3 games. They got 3 consecutive draws going on the road to face the Courage, and they just were unable to capitalize on any of the opportunities here.
And they can't pick up points. You look at Houston's last 3 games, or excuse me, they can't shoot and score. That's an issue for Houston. They have, heading into this match against North Carolina, the best defense in the league, the stingiest. Only 10 goals against. Jane Campbell has been tremendous with her shutouts in net for the Dash, and she's a blessing that she didn't go anywhere during this World Cup break for Sam Lady. But heading into this match, 0-0 draw, 0-0 draw. And now, again, it's 1-0. They can't score, and they can't find in the back of the net. And that's something that they're going to struggle with moving forward. They lose Michelle Lozia, the last national team player. She's headed to Australia and New Zealand with Nigeria at this point. So that's a starter, a namestay starter for Sam Lady that is now gone over the next few weeks. Yes, they still have Maria Sanchez, Diana Ordonez, Ebony Salmon, the firepower that, frankly, is the firepower on paper, but hasn't been able to connect consistently together on the pitch. And that's where Houston's struggling a little bit. Defensively, I think they're pretty good. They didn't get a red card this game. Finally, they snapped that streak. Back-to-back red cards in their last 2 games. They'll have Katie Lind back and Natalie Jacobs heading into the final week before the bye week. But offensively, they've got to shake it up a little bit. They have to do something a bit more unassuming. And there's really 3 ways to score in this league, right? Transitions, set pieces, and forcing opposition, right? Possession. And Houston has to pick up one of them. I think they can lean on set pieces a little bit during this break, but we'll see.
I don't think that's those are unfair points for you to bring up in terms of this team specifically. Again, you and I, we do so many of these episodes a week, and I feel like that has been the theme. Anytime we touch on Houston, it's like, is this going to be the week? Is this going to be the week where they finally put it all together and they leapfrog into that upper half of the table? And it just has not happened. I mean,
one shot on target for the Dash yesterday,
and that's not going to work. And I feel like this game is maybe a good example for them to take a look at and try to work on some certain areas or try to adjust some things, because that's what it comes down to in this league. We talk about how it comes down to all those fine margins, but when you look in this game specifically, obviously you touched on possession, but outworked in total passes. We're talking 501 compared to 268. They completely lost a duels battle with North Carolina Courage, winning 37 duels compared to 26 for Houston. So it was just like a game that they weren't able to be clinical, knowing that they were going to go on the road and have to go ahead and concede possession a little bit. They probably looked at all the film in front of them and said, we're not going to be able to maybe go ahead and disrupt some of that. But if you sort of walk in on the road going up against the home side, knowing that, what's the actual game plan and how's it going to iron out? So we didn't really see them get to execute that. So not going to get it done with one shot on goal. And obviously Caitlin Rowland in the game for Courage in net in light of Casey Murphy with United States women's national team. Did well, but unfortunately wasn't really tested in that sense where you have all these shots, but just, the one actual attempt on target. So we'll see. Still lots of stuff to work on for Houston. They sit in 7th once again, heading off into week 15. We've got some more games to recap though. So stick with us after a quick break.
You gonna start the engine sometime soon, Erica?
The odds of all of us being here at this time, it's improbable, yet here we are together.
Hold on to your saddles.
All right, we're back. Let's talk about some upsets. Let's start with Chicago Red Stars going up against San Diego Wave FC, getting all 3 points, 1-0. This one goes all the way to the Red Stars. And look, we talked about it on the preview a little bit. Is this going to be the week where they get a result? I think they had this one with the makings of a draw, but you went with the Red Stars all the way, Lisa, and they pulled through for you. And they pulled through after some fines to Chris Petroselli for social media conduct. He was out there tweeting about the planes and travel situations. And they had to go into this game pretty shorthanded. One of the things that I noticed right away for Chicago in this game is the starting 11s drop is, just the lack of depth right now that they have. And this isn't something that has this isn't something new for the Red Stars this year, right? But it is something that I'm like, gosh, we're 14 weeks in. You would hope that this organization could figure out a way to get some more depth for this team moving forward, but that just hasn't been possible for the team as they navigate all of these different things off the field in terms of trying to find new ownership as well. But looking at San Diego and having 20 player available, game day roster available to them, and then with Chicago only 17, and that's also without Julia Bianchi because she was issued the red card and had to serve the game. So I was like a little nervous. At least I was like, uh-oh. Are they going to have enough personnel to get them through a game like this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a little bit surprising. Even though I picked Chicago to win this game, I think that as it was unfolding, I was a little bit nervous about how it was actually going to happen between these two sides because San Diego, they look dangerous, right? When you look at the front line that they have and Jaden Shaw, Mackenzie Doniak getting an opportunity, and they do get a goal. They get one from Doniak earlier in this game. But unfortunately, Taylor Korniak is offside at the initial service into the box in the lead up to this goal for San Diego early in this game, and it gets called back. And I think there was a collective sigh of relief from the Red Stars at this point that you could just see through your television screen. I'm sure you could hear it all throughout the Chicago suburbs and Chicago. But as this game continued to go on, I think that it was really good for Chicago to have Kayla Sharples in that back line again. Bianca St. George, although she's not going to the World Cup, that's going to be a huge catalyst for the Red Stars. She's a stellar player that has this kind of like never say die mentality that can continue to go and continue to run. I think there's really positive moments, and ultimately it's one goal that makes a difference in this game, and it's a fantastic goal. The service from the wide areas by Tatum Milazzo into the box and Ella Stevens getting her noggin on it at the near post, redirecting it. There was absolutely nothing that Yanez in goal for the Wave could do. It was a beautiful goal, really.
I thought this was Milazzo's one of her best game in months, honestly. I know the team started off in a certain kind of way, and you look for those bright spots in the back line. And I know there's been a lot of discussion about Kruger and the season that she's put together for this team. And there was a month there, I believe, when Milazzo was named to Team of the Month. But you lose all that, right? When everyone is so focused on the losses outside of the locker room. So to see this game come together for Milazzo, I think we are starting to see the value in having four in the back, for a team like Chicago, and Sharples is a huge part of that in her return. But I love the link up between Milazzo and Stevens. It was a little bit of an illusion, I think. You look at the buildup on this play, and you almost wonder if it's moving too slowly for Chicago, that they're not going to capitalize on the opportunity in front of them. And yet it's a great ball in, and it's a great run by Stevens to get into the perfect position to put the ball away. But it's also the timing of this goal for me. It's right when you think this game is going to be 0-0 at the half, and they get it in stoppage time of this first half. So it's like, okay, you thought this was maybe going to, be a little bit of a long night for San Diego. We talked about that on the preview as well, Lisa, that there was going to be the turnaround for this team in a midweek Challenge Cup game, that they were going to have the travel on them going into Bridgeview. But what were we going to see from Casey Stoney coming into this game? Were we going to see more substitutions in light of having the extra minutes in the midweek match? And we did see that. We saw Turnbow come on into, early into the second half for Rachel Hill. We saw Ali get in later, Barcenas getting in later, trying to, go ahead and, get someone in there to maybe shake things up a little bit, but I almost kind of felt like maybe it was a little bit too late. I think at that point, if you allow this Red Stars team to get organized, which is something that they're capable of doing, if you allow them to get into a zone where they can execute in organized shape, that's not going to be good for you.
No, yeah. I think we saw that. Yeah.
And doing that with Emily Boyd, a different goalkeeper in net, I was very excited for this player to get this result. This is a player that has had to deal with nagging injury this year. Haven't been able to see this player get rotated in, not even during Challenge Cup group matches. And I think it was a nice reintroduction because I think people forget that Emily Boyd is a keeper that likes to come off of her line sometimes and get aggressive on the ball. Thought she had a really good game as well. It's I think at this point in this phase of the season, Chicago's in a position where they can't lose any game moving forward. If they want to try and make some type of a run, some type of a, miracle comeback. And maybe this is one of those games where they remain motivated by that. So, playing up against a upper half table team, handing San Diego a third consecutive regular season loss. I think that's something that you want to hang your hat on a little bit. Maybe you go into the July 4th weekend feeling pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I think they have to be happy with this one. Can they close out this NWSL week 15 coming up with them, pick up a couple more points before they head into the bye week and then a Challenge Cup break? It looks pretty good, right? This is the time of the season where teams that have maybe been struggling for a little bit are going to stay consistent, because Chicago, although they haven't been picking up points and they're at the bottom of the standings, they've been playing pretty well over the last couple of weeks. They just haven't been able to put a full 90-minute game together. And I'm going to argue that this still wasn't even maybe a full 90-minute game, but they had just a little bit more than San Diego did at this point. They had an opportunity off the post. They were able to get one in before the halftime came, and then they could just weather the storm of the second half of play. I'm excited about the next couple of weeks for the Red Stars and what they can do. Maybe a bye week in there will allow them a little bit more time to restructure. They'll get Bianchi back, or no, they won't, right? She's gone.
She's going to be back from a red card suspension. And it depends on how they want to utilize her. I know that this is a player that they are starting to get more games in terms of like being an actual figure in the starting 11. And I think they're going to have the opportunity to do more of that. I think they were unsure whether or not this player was going to go to the World Cup. Now with Brazil's roster, final 23 player roster out there, she was not named to that roster. Is Chicago going to lean into that and try to lean on this player a little bit more now that they know they're going to have her? Yeah. So I would love to see it. I know, you mentioned earlier one of the possible areas that Houston could look into and try to lean into for their strengths could be off of dead ball situations or set pieces. I love Bianchi on those opportunities for Chicago. So hopefully moving forward, they want to try to integrate her more into these regular starting lineups, and we get to see that a little bit. But we'll have to wait and see for the next one and see how they build off of this. Let's talk about another upset, though, before we take a break. We have to chat all about Portland Thorns and Kansas City Current, because the Current went on the road to Portland and handed the Thorns a 1-0 loss. What a time in week 14.
Seriously, we both went Portland in this one, which I stood by that up until, the penalty kick happened. And that's really how this happened for Kansas City. Michelle Cooper, she knocks down a penalty kick, becomes the second youngest player to do that in the NWSL, score a penalty kick for their team, right behind Mallory Swanson. And that was the difference maker, the lone difference maker in this NWSL 2022 championship rematch between these two sides. Bless you. I know this is an audio medium, but Sandra took a sneeze on mute over there. Bless you, bud.
I'm a pro. I mute myself when I got to sneeze.
Interesting matchup in Portland. And now this is the first time Portland takes an L at home during this regular season. Tough for them.
Everything was there for us in the preview, Lisa. So, again, bringing the preview on a little bit to the recap show. Of course, we were like, you know what? We're going to go with the Thorns in this one. We talked about depth being another one of those X factors for for this team, that they, yes, are coming off of a midweek Challenge Cup game. Even though that was a loss as well, they are still going to be at home. They don't have to worry about the travel. They could just continue to prepare for the week in front of them. It's a little bit different when you go from Wednesday through Saturday. It's not as if you have a travel that's involved or for a Friday night kind of game. None of that was involved in this one. And we thought, what kind of minutes or how many minutes would we see for Morgan Weaver specifically? Were we going to see a start for Olivia Moultrie? Was Sam Coffey going to get that armband again? All of these little things. And we got to check off those boxes. And we saw them.
Which is very cool.
We saw that we saw all those things in this game, which I think a 1-0 scoreline tells a little bit of that story for this game specifically. I don't know if Kansas City can say that somewhere along the way you have to have some luck go your way. And I love that the lone goal in this game did come off of a penalty situation.
I know.
But that penalty was won by a first-year player in Sandra, and that penalty was converted by another first-year player in Michelle Cooper. So I love
these are showing up, and that's been honestly a lot of the blame that we've put on why Kansas City, and we as like in a general, we have put on Kansas City over the last couple of weeks, and why they've struggled is because they're without their big veterans, right? Whether it's Dabinia that's hurt, or DiBernardo out with a concussion in this game, Gautreau getting back from injury. That was the biggest thing. Hamilton, hey, when can we get these big time players back into the game and let them get on a run for Kansas City? And that's still a factor in this, of course, right? You want everyone to be healthy, but you can rely on your rookies. Alexis Spanstra, Michelle Cooper, they can do it. They can show up big in these games. You just have to give them the confidence and give them a little bit of time. And that's exactly what they did. We do see Kristen Hamilton get a full 90. Morgan Gautreau starts the game and then comes out. But yeah, I mean, really happy for Michelle Cooper. I think a few weeks ago I said this, like once she gets one, that's when the floodgates will open. Honestly, I'm predicting like similar to Diana Ordonez in her rookie year last year. She got one, and then it just started to click for her. She was feeling herself. Once you get confident, your teammates understand your positioning on the field, and you create those partnerships. That's what happens about halfway through the season, and we're just a few weeks over halfway.
I would love to see Michelle Cooper completely capitalize on a second half of the season. She had to navigate that first half pretty early. They tabbed her right away with starts because of so many injuries to the roster. Now they're starting to work players back into form. Here's the World Cup period of the schedule. She's getting worked into these starting lineups with players missing, with players still having to navigate injuries as the season goes on. So I would love to see that from Michelle Cooper. I think it's possible we could see something special. Maybe those goals are going to come, just like you said. We've got 2 more games to recap for you all. So stick with us after a quick break.
In 3, 2, 1.
How you doing?
Run, Forrest!
Run, I'm ready.
So fetch.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
All right, let's close it out with some golazos because we got to talk about games that delivered the goals. Let's start with OL Reign versus Racing Louisville, a 2-2 draw between these two teams. They split the points, and what a way to close it out. OL Reign having to come back to get this result. It was a thriller down the stretch. You love to see it.
It seriously was. I mean, we're talking about it at the end of our show right now, but this is the game that kicked off the weekend, and my expectations were set pretty high at the end of this game because as it rolled on, Racing Louisville traveling to Seattle to play at Lumen Field. I had OL Reign, as did you in this one.
Yep.
They end up splitting points with Louisville, but they come from behind, and it's another penalty kick opportunity for Racing Louisville. That's how Wang Shuang gets her second goal of the year from the penalty spot, and that's early in the first half. In the 24th minute is when Louisville gets on the board first, and then it was a slow end to the first half. Action and moments throughout the start of the second half, but things didn't really start to pick up until like the 75th minute in this match. A couple of rotation for both sides, and then a very confusing second goal for Racing Louisville. I'm going to say it. I was flabbergasted. The players were flabbergasted. The broadcasters, the coach, Kim Bjorkegren, after Louisville gets awarded the second goal and they're up 2-0 in the 75th minute, Kim Bjorkegren, head coach for Louisville, is so confused. They show him standing on the sidelines, literally scratching his head, asking people what happened. Like, he's not celebrating. He just is genuinely confused about what happened. And the players on the field are celebrating. It was a very interesting situation. The way it happened was there was a collision on the far side of the and both teams, I'm going to essentially say, thought there was a foul. Specifically, OL Reign, they were on their defensive half, and the ball falls to Paige Monahan, and she's inside the 18-yard box, and the closest defender is about 5 yards away because they thought the play was going to stop. She ends up getting a shot off. Valentolis Joyce isn't ready in goal at all. She tries to make a save on it. She touches it, but it still hits the back of the net. It was very unassuming.
I'm glad you touched on it, because even though they're not walking away with the win in this one, it was one of those goals where I was like, oh no, like, this is going to be one of those games that the Reign are just going to be pissed off for the rest of the season about, and watch out. But turns out we didn't have to wait till next week at all, because they turned it all around in this game. And I'm sorry, but we all have to give our thank yous to Elise Bennett for turning the tide for the Reign in this game. We're talking a 5-minute window in this match in which OL Reign got the equalizer. We see an assist by Bennett, and Latsko getting into the mix, getting one back for the team. She got subbed into the game for Fishlock, who I'm sure they're happy to have back getting minutes on this match. But you could sort of see Latsko and the energy that she brought into this game off of the bench. And then just 5 minutes later, Nikki Stanton with the dime for Bennett to put things away in the 80. Oh my goodness, in the 87th minute. I just can't believe it just took 5 minutes. I love this. I love this sport.
I know. But it was crazy.
It just, again, bringing the preview on this as well, which is because we both went with OL Reign. And I believe when we were talking about making this pick, part of why we did it was because of Elise Bennett. We were like, this player is getting increased minutes with Laura Harvey on OL Reign. This World Cup period is here. She's going to continue to get those minutes. And what an absolute finish to this game. I think even when you see the final whistle come out of this, it's like, no, they split the points. They don't do enough to get this win. But to have this comeback and have it manifested into existence within 5 minutes, you could see what it meant to these players. Elise Bennett with the reaction post game, you're on such an adrenaline high at this point. And Laura Harvey just high-fiving everybody in sight. It was just I'm with you. I was like, wow, this is the game that's going to set off week 14.
The bar was set. Yeah, I mean, Laura Harvey, head coach for OL Reign, going crazy. She, it was announced by the club that she has a 2-year contract extension through 2025 with the club, so a bit of consistency in Seattle, where she started her NWSL career there in 2013. So this happens. Of course, the double header goals that happen, I believe they were both awarded as headers. Bethany Balser getting the first one, and then, of course, Elise Bennett, the reason we picked Reign to win this game. That is now the 9th header that OL Reign has scored this year. The 9th one. Houston Dash have only scored 10 goals in 14 weeks, and OL Reign has done basically that at 9 with their head of their 23 goals that they have. Impressive to see. I think the impressive fight in OL Reign to kind of turn it around after going down 2 goals, going down first goal in the first half, right? They definitely answered and they came back. And that's good to see, maybe missing some of your big time players that are away on international duty.
Yeah, for sure. Congrats to the Reign of the comeback draw. Racing Louisville, more footage to go over and try to close matches out. Let's close this game out, or this episode out, with the final game, Washington Spirit versus Orlando Pride. Our big blowout of the weekend, because Orlando Pride hand Washington Spirit the loss with 3 goals and a clean sheet. In this one, we're talking about individual performances, Lisa, about players who are stepping up during this World Cup period. That's what we're going to look at moving forward in these handful of games that we will have to watch during the World Cup. It's going to be a couple of these regular season games and then a handful of Challenge Cup games. Who are the players that are going to capitalize in these moments and step up for their teams in light of so many players missing? And for Orlando Pride, we talked about Marta not being there. We talked about Adriana not being part of this roster and how they look and how this team plays differently when those 2 players are available. Julie Doyle said, hold up. It's my time to shine.
Unassuming again. I mean, to put us on blast, I had this one as a draw and you had this one as the Spirit. So I know Orlando has been a bit of this team that can cause some chaos, right? They can go on runs, they can disrupt other teams and other opposition, but you're exactly right. Julie Doyle just said, all right, I'm in this from the start. I think the first goal coming in the opening 10 minutes of this match for Orlando was tremendous. It's poor clearance by Washington. They can't get the ball out of their danger area in the box, and Julie Doyle finds it falling to herself. She gets her hips around it. It's a wonderful volley by Julie Doyle, something that we have not seen her do yet in the NWSL. So it's inside of her. We just have to shake it out a little bit and get her back in these scoring ways, because she answered a lot of the questions that Orlando had probably coming into this one. She gets the opening goal in the 8th minute, and then she gets a second one in the 16th minute, frankly capitalizing for the Pride on like miss clearances and troubled defense on the Washington side of things, especially in the first 2 goals, and then the third one being dubbed as an own goal. So doing the same thing, but that final goal for Orlando coming off the foot of Allie Watt. She's a player that I want to see step up in the next couple of weeks for Orlando.
Yeah, I thought, watching her impact in this game, you could see it off the ball a bit. I would argue that for, Messiah Bright as well. You have these very dynamic, attacking-minded players who can cause problems for a team with all of their different movements of the ball. And I think that's a bit of what we saw here in this game for the Pride going up against the Spirit. I mean, it's tough because it's like this third goal ultimately gets credited as an own goal against Tara McCann, who is a player that we've had a lot of praise for over this season, converted into a center back, has been really putting together a strong season for the Spirit at this new role. And that's what we were looking for. We know that in a game like this, that there were going to be multiple key starters missing for the Spirit, because they were not going to have Kingsbury or Rodman or Sullivan or Sanchez. So who was going to step up?
The list goes on.
And it goes on and on. And we were also, we were like, there are pieces here, though. There are enough pieces here for the Spirit to maybe put something together at home, right? To go ahead and get a result, but it just did not turn out that way. I mean, Hatch, I think there were a lot of eyes on this player, in light of her omission on the 23-player roster for the United States. Is this player going to deliver during this stretch of games? It was good to hear from her in post-game comments, seeing reported out there that it's something that she's trying to embrace.
Right.
That she knows that she needs to be a leader on this team and that she's going to be a focal point on this game or moving forward in the games for the Spirit. But just tough one. Just didn't have answers, it looked like, at a certain point in the game.
Yeah, frankly, they didn't have a lot of answers. And when you look at kind of the stats, run them down, Orlando just capitalizing, right? 12 shots, 4 of them on target, and they had 4 total big chances to Washington's 1. So
Yeah.
it struggled, definitely. And I think that Anna Morehouse in goal for Orlando has solidified herself in between the sticks and done a really nice job. And that's going to be a huge consistent factor moving forward. You look at across the league and the players and the teams that are missing for the World Cup. And it's very interesting because Chicago, only 2 are gone, and Shayna Matthews, Alyssa Nair, they pick up a win. Kansas City only has 2 as well in Dabinia and Desiree Scott. Orlando, Adriana and Marta, all those teams picked up points, and they were only missing 2 of their internationals. Now, across the board, the 6 total missing from these 3 teams are very, very big, important parts and pieces. Yeah. But there's enough else there, enough else glue and stick to the fabric that can keep these teams together and really allow them to step up and capitalize over these next couple of weeks.
No, I'm with you. I know it's something that we're going to keep an eye on moving forward. I think this was that first glimpse, right? I think there was a little bit of that energy across this weekend as well, even though we got that really incredible finish with OL Reign in racing, and we were like, wow, it's going to be all wild all weekend. That wasn't necessarily the case in week 14, but I think a big part of that is what you just alluded to. There was some of that energy where there were a lot of players playing together for the first time for extended minutes. So maybe things might look a little bit different in week 15. And we're going to preview it for you. So make sure you're subscribed to A3 and make sure that you are downloading all the content that we're putting out there for you. But that's it from us today. So thank you all for joining us on the recap and listening to Attacking Third. Download, follow, and listen anywhere you get your podcast. You could watch us too. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube to get alerts for whenever we go live at youtube.com/Attacking Third. And Lisa and I will be back this week with even more content for you all. So stay tuned. For Sandra Herrera and Lisa Carlin, this was Attacking Third.